The growing menace in our country tonight to personal safety, to life, to limb and property, in homes, in churches, on the playgrounds and places of business, particularly in our great cities, is the mounting concern, or should be, of every thoughtful citizen in the United States.
Rioting, burning, sniping, mugging, traffic in narcotics, and disregard for the law are the advance guard of anarchy, and they must and they will be stopped.
This nation must make an all-out effort to combat crime. The 89th Congress gave us a new start in the attack on crime by passing the Law Enforcement Assistance Act that I recommended.
At the current rate, the crimes of violence in America will double by 1972. We cannot accept that kind of future for America. We owe it to the decent and law-abiding citizens of America to take the offensive against the criminal forces that threaten their peace and their security, and to rebuild respect for law across this country.
America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse.
We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one. We have increased the amount of money for handling the problem of dangerous drugs sevenfold.
Our people want an end to the living hell that drug pushing has spawned. The toughest anti-drug legislation in the United States is now the law in New York State.
Drugs are menacing our society. They're threatening our values and undercutting our institutions. They're killing our children. And by next year, our spending for drug law enforcement will have more than tripled from its 1981 levels. Last year alone, over 10,000 drug criminals were convicted, and nearly $250 million of their assets were seized by the DEA.
For the sake of our children, I implore each of you to be unyielding and inflexible in your opposition to drugs.
President Reagan signed the major new anti-drug law, a law that stiffens the penalties for federal drug crimes and provides almost $2 billion for increased drug enforcement and education.
DARE is a prevention program. If we can stop the demand for drugs, the supply will diminish. Here's some more words to the wise. Parents, police, and schools working together can teach kids never to take drugs.
Okay, last time. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
You cannot fight a war on drugs unless and until you're going to challenge the bankers and the gun tellers and those who grow them. Don't just focus on the children. Let's stop drugs at the level of supply and demand. We must end the scourge on the American culture.
This is crack cocaine, seized a few days ago by drug enforcement agents in a park just across the street from the White House. It's as innocent looking as candy, but it's turning our cities into battle zones, and it's murdering our children.
We should not allow people to be able to distribute this poison without fear that maybe they might be arrested and put in jail.
We have no choice but to build more prisons, and we better get started right now.
When I was governor, I signed hundreds of anti-crime bills, tough bills. Use a gun, go to prison, mandatory sentencing for repeat offenders, for first-degree burglars, for selling heroin, for assaulting the elderly or the disabled. And you know what? The prisons went up.
Our streets are being stained with the blood of our children. And it's got to stop. Damn it, it's got to stop. We should start with a 3 strikes you're out bill. Let's double the penalty for 2-time felons and put 3-time losers behind bars for life. It's time to turn career criminals into career inmates.
Those who commit crimes should be punished, and those who commit repeated violent crimes should be told, when you commit a 3rd violent crime, you will be put away and put away for good. 3 strikes and you are out.
What are you going to do, if anything, about crime?
There are 60 new death penalties, brand new. There are 70 additional enhancements of penalties, i.e., you go to jail longer.
Tough laws on punishment, smart laws on prevention. You will vote for this rule.
A vote against this rule is a vote against the safety of the American people.
It's a giant leap in the fight against crime and drugs. If you want to be tough on crime, prove it today.
Passage of this rule embodies our commitment to take back our neighborhoods.
This is a tough crime bill. Its time is now. America sent us here to act. Let us act today.
There must be no doubt about whose side we're on. People who commit crimes should be caught, convicted, and punished. 100,000 police officers on the street, a 20% increase. It will be used to build prisons to keep 100,000 violent criminals off the street. When this bill is law, 3 strikes and you're out will be the law of the land. Today, the will of the American people has triumphed over a generation of division and paralysis.
Kids that once stole hubcaps now rape and murder. No fear of punishment. Experts call them super predators.
There are no violent offenses that are juvenile. You rape somebody, you're an adult. You shoot somebody, you're an adult.
I think we ought to try 14-year-olders as adults, down to 14 years old as adults, to help our gang task force members fight crime. I know we need to expand the determinant sentencing statutes in the state of Texas.
We have built 75,000 additional state spaces to make sure that we've got a room to lock you up if you commit a crime.
I think it's time we abolish parole for in Virginia and make sure that violent criminals are serving out their full sentences.
We want to go back and cut spending for programs like Midnight Basketball and all of these counseling programs, and we want to take that money and build prisons.
The war on drugs has disproportionately affected young black males. The ACLU reports that blacks are 4 to 5 times more likely to be convicted for drug possession, although surveys indicate that blacks and whites use drugs at about the same similar rate.
We believe that even those who have struggled with a dark past can find brighter days ahead. One way we act on that belief is by helping former prisoners who've paid for their crimes. We help them build new lives as productive members of our society.
These conditions have been shown to exacerbate the vicious cycle of poverty, of criminality, and of incarceration that traps too many individuals and devastates entire communities.
Most of these people are in prison under state law, but the federal law set a trend. And that was overdone. We were wrong about that.
My dad's in jail.
Why?
I don't like to talk about it. Most people don't understand.
Actually, I do understand what you're going through. When I was about your age, my dad was incarcerated too.
He was?
Wait, what's carcerated? And why was your dad in it? Incarcerated is when someone breaks the law, a grown-up rule, and then they have to go to jail or prison.
The Justice Department announced today a plan to set free some 6,000 inmates.
All of them eligible for parole now because of recent changes on federal drug crime sentences.
This is the largest release in the Bureau of Prisons history.
It is part of an effort to ease overcrowding and roll back the harsh penalties given to non-violent drug offenders in the 80s and 90s.
Criminal justice reform is something that I never thought about when I was younger in Congress. It's something that I thought just be tough on crime, be tough on crime. And I think we overcompensated on some of our laws where we had so many mandatory minimums and 3 strikes you're out that we ended up putting people for long prison terms, which ends up ruining their life and hurting their community.
It's time to change our approach. It's time to end the era of mass incarceration.
This age of mass incarceration on a whole is violating our core principles in so many areas.
Excessive mandatory minimums do not make us safer.
This idea of total incarceration just isn't working. It's not humane.
It's time we fix our mistakes.
And it's essential we apply the fix retroactively.
I won't sit idly by and watch our criminal justice system continue to consume, confine, and define our young men. I say we take a stand and fight for justice now.
Our nation's being robbed of men and women who could be workers and taxpayers, could be more actively involved in their children's lives, could be role models, could be community leaders.
You got an opportunity to make a difference at a time when overall violent crime rates have been dropping, at the same time as incarcerations last year dropped for the first time in 40 years. My hope is that if we can keep on looking at the evidence, keep on looking at the facts, figure out what works, that we can start making a change.
And we need to honor redemption, and we need to make redemption something that is valued in our culture and our society and in our laws. That's something we want to see more of, and I think our laws need to reflect that, and I think I learned a pretty good lesson about that over the last few years.